Let's welcome to the stage Fintech pioneer and COO of Dragonpay, Mr. Robertson S. Chiang.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Dick, and I have the unfortunate task of being the guy who's probably keeping you from lunch. This is the first event in like 2 years. I mean, first physical event that I'm speaking to for quite some time. So it's good to see faces again in front of me instead of a Zoom screen. I just wanted to share a little bit about our experience with when it comes to payments in the last 2 years, which is a common question that people ask us. How have payment habits changed during the pandemic? And I think our host shared some information previously, but these are data that we actually have with Dragonpay itself, at least as far as payments are concerned. Next slide, please. So Dragonpay is a 12-year-old startup. We have been in the payment space since day one here in the Philippines, and we have always focused on alternative payments. So basically in the Philippines, where we have a very low credit card penetration, we have focused instead on non-card payments. So these are things like cash payments, online banking, e-wallets, mobile payments, ATM payments, over-the-counter cash payments, and so on. Over the years, we have accumulated a lot of touch points. You can go make a payment for your Dragonpay purchase through 50,000 different physical counters as well as online channels. And we serve almost all the major industries that you can think of, from logistics, retail, manufacturing, education, government, and so on. So most of you would see us, you would have seen us somewhere along the way in the last 12 years. And for those who are avid Shopee users, I'm sure you would see Dragonpay appearing in your checkout screen quite often. Next slide, please. So these are some numbers that we are going to share in the last 5 years. So these are in terms of transaction count. So it's not in terms of amount, so transaction count. So from 2017 to 2018, 2019, we were happily growing at a pretty good rate, growing 31%, 62%, and so on. But the big change really happened during the pandemic. And as probably logical, right? Everybody couldn't go out of their homes, and everybody started to buying everything from toilet paper to their food online. And that led to a significant shift to online payments. So 2020 and 2021 were banner years for us. Of course, nobody would have wanted the pandemic to happen, but in the payment space at least, it has been good in the sense that it really ushered people to move from their old habits of buying things physically, finally to moving and buying things online. So 2020, we experienced a 141% increase from the previous year. And 2021, it was another 128% from the previous year. So it has been growing really, really fast the past couple of years. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to show you the payment distribution for the last 3 years, 2019, 2020, and 2021, to show you how different the modes of payment have changed in the last 3 years. So I guess the most obvious one that has shrunk is the blue part, right? So if you look at the big blue slice, that's basically cash payment. So we've always said that the Philippines is a cash-based society, not cashless society, cash-based society, because we have always preferred to pay our everything from electric bills, utility bills, everything. You would go to a buyout center, right? So we are very cash-heavy. And it used to be that cash accounted for close to about 2/3 of the total payments that Dragonpay was processing back in 2019. And so 2019 and earlier, it was like 67% over-the-counter cash payments. But as you can see, 2020, the year of the pandemic, everybody switched to e-wallets. So this was a complete change. And were it not for the pandemic, I don't think this would have happened. And there are different things that significantly changed the behavior habit. So I was talking earlier with my friend here, in India, the demonetization of the big bills shifted everybody over to e-wallet. So here in the Philippines, it was really the pandemic that changed the habit significantly. So e-wallets now take up 64% back in 2020. And in 2021, it's now 71% and still growing. And you have to remember that back in 2021, the only significant e-wallets there were, GCash, Paymaya, Coins at PH. And then in 2022, there were more wallets that came in. Of course, GrabPay started getting more visible. And of course, ShopeePay came in 2022. And ShopeePay would be a very interesting a competitor, I think, to the likes of GCash and Paymaya, given that they have such a huge user base of Shopee buyers that could potentially migrate over and use ShopeePay. So we would expect to see cash getting smaller as a percentage of the pie, whereas e-wallets is growing. Now, another thing that probably worth looking at, of course, is online banking. I know it doesn't look very promising. Starting from 12%, it shrank down to 11%, and now it's only taking 7%. But in reality, in terms of amount, people are spending more with online banking, and that's what I'm going to show in the next slide. So next slide, please. So this slide is more specific now to Shopify users, or rather Shopify sellers, merchants. So these data were extracted from Dragonpay's Shopify merchants specifically. So the data was just taken last month. So it's very, very recent. So as of May 2022, these are the payment distributions that we are seeing. So among our Shopify merchants, 46% are getting payments through e-wallets. So again, GCash, Paymaya, Coins, ShopeePay. We included PayPal as well as part of e-wallets. So it accounted for 46%. Online banking, pretty good, 29%. Considering 10 years ago, hardly anyone really used online banking for anything other than balance inquiry. So now 29% is pretty good. Over-the-counter cash payments, so these are the Cebuanas, the 7-Eleven, the M. Lulier, and so on, accounted for 17%. Now, of course, the numbers here for credit card might be a little bit skewed and it might look low, but that's because Dragonpay is not really focused on doing credit cards. So I'm not saying that credit card is low as a rule for all Shopify merchants. I'm just saying that in the case of Dragonpay, it only accounted for 4% of our total volume. And one thing, that if you have been following the payment space, one new interesting development is what we call the Buy Now, Pay Later, or BNPLs, or basically installment payments. But these are non-credit card installment payments. So we have only started offering BNPLs, I think, starting last year. So we work with TendoPay, BillEase, and Cashalo. And we're working on a few more, including Home Credit and one or two other guys that skip my mind right now. So we think it looks very promising. Considering it's a very new product, it's already accounting for 3% in terms of a transaction count. But if I move you over to the other side, which is in terms of value or amount, you would notice some stark contrast with the numbers here. So even though e-wallets is taking up close to half in terms of number of transactions, in terms of value, it's actually only about 1/4. So it tells you that, yes, a lot of people are using e-wallets, but they're using it for small value transactions. Whereas if you compare it to BNPLs, for example, whereas only 3% of our total transaction count was BNPL, only 3%, in terms of amount, it was actually accounting for 10%. And same is true with online banking. You will notice it's only 29% in terms of transaction count, but in terms of amount, it was accounting for 32%. So payments are still, I guess, a mix of a preference in terms of what exactly are you selling in your Shopify store. Is it it's going to attract more of e-wallet users versus online banking users? If you're selling high-ticket items, electronic products, chances are people will not be buying it using GCash. They would probably be buying it using online banking or installment payments, because BNPL is actually quite popular for high-ticket items, especially consumer electronics. So as Dragonpay's philosophy has always been, we provide the most payment options to make your to allow you to close a sale regardless of how your customer wants to pay for it. So we will offer as many payment options as we can. And for a Shopify merchant who just connect to us, basically all these payment options are there. So we can just enable and disable it based on your preference. So next slide, which is my last slide. So again, I promise you, I won't keep you so much from your lunch. But the other question so what are people selling among our Shopify merchants? What are they basically selling? So the biggest group that we are selling is still retail. So they're selling retail products, anything from clothes, shoes, the usual physical products. Food accounted for 9%. We did see an uptick in food during the pandemic, as a lot of the restaurants who obviously couldn't serve dine-in customers anymore, they shifted over to delivery. So during 2020 to 2021, we had quite a bit of uptick when it comes to restaurants selling items through their Shopify stores. But we saw a little bit of slowdown again, 2022 or towards the end of 2021, when the physical market started opening again. So the likes of during the pandemic, we brought in the likes of Honeybon, Gringo. There was like a couple of Buffalo Wings. There's Big Al Cookie Jar. There's a lot of them that did really, really well during the pandemic. But now, I guess going back to normal a bit. So the food sector, at least for us, kind of slowed down a bit. So that's basically it. So this is how things have looked at our front. Again, to summarize, volume has definitely increased and shifted online primarily because of the pandemic. And user purchasing habits have significantly changed from the cash-based society 3 years ago to what it is today, which is largely e-wallets and online banking and now BNPLs. So if you're looking at really making your store grow online in Shopify, by all means, you have to consider all of these payment options, and so that you don't have to talk to like 20, 30 different vendors. Dragonpay basically is a one-stop shop to allow you to accept payments from all these guys. So thank you, and have a good lunch.